You're the most wanted man in the Western Hemisphere. Your face is on posters in DEA field offices from San Diego to Miami. There's a $15 million bounty on your head, official from the US government, and another $10 million offered privately by rivals who'd pay twice that to watch you die. You control an organization that moves 40 tons of cocaine per month, employs 15,000 people, and generates more annual revenue than some Fortune 500 companies. You are, by any measure that matters, one of the most powerful men in the world. You're also hiding in a concrete room in the Sierra Madre, eating rice and beans prepared by a woman who's been cooking for you since you were a boy. You haven't seen your wife in 8 months. You haven't held your grandchildren in 2 years. The last time you walked down a public street, you were 26 years old. You're 53 now. 27 years of empire, and this is what it looks like from the inside. You started with nothing. A village in rural Sinaloa, no electricity, no running water. A father who farmed poppies because corn couldn't feed a family of 7. You were running errands for local traffickers at 15, carrying messages and small packages across mountain trails you knew better than anyone. By 20, you were coordinating shipments. By 25, you'd killed your first rival, a man named Cervantes who controlled the routes you needed. By 30, people whispered your name the way they whisper about saints and devils, unsure which category you belong to. The climb was everything they say it is. Brutal, relentless, paid for in blood, yours and others. You have a scar across your abdomen from a machete attack in '94. You have 3 bullets still lodged in your body because removing them was riskier than leaving them. You've buried 2 brothers, a son, and more friends than you can count. The men who started this journey with you are all dead. You're the last one standing, which means you're either blessed or cursed. Most days you can't tell the difference. Your organization runs like a corporation because you designed it that way. Regional bosses who report to lieutenants, who report to your inner circle. A hierarchy as clean as any Fortune 500 company, with clear chains of command and accountability structures. Accountants who've never touched a weapon, but understand money flows better than any CFO. Lawyers in Mexico City and Houston and Miami who defend your people and negotiate with prosecutors and find the loopholes that keep the machine running. Logistics specialists who coordinate shipments across borders with the precision of Amazon. Chemists who improve product purity. Communications experts who build encrypted networks. IT professionals who maintain your security systems. You didn't build this with violence alone. You built it with intelligence, with strategy, with the understanding that sustainable power requires structure. The cowboys who ran cartels before you, the men who thought guns and aggression were enough, they're all dead or in prison. You survived because you thought like a businessman. You invested in systems. You built redundancies. You treated the organization as what it is. A massive enterprise that happens to be illegal, requiring the same management principles as any successful company. But the violence is always there, underneath the corporate structure, supporting it like rebar in concrete. It has to be. That's the nature of the business, the tax you pay for operating outside the law. When a rival encroaches on your territory, you respond with force so overwhelming that others think twice before trying. When a politician breaks a promise, you remind them what promises mean in ways they never forget. When someone inside the organization betrays you, steals money, shares information, shows disloyalty, you make an example so thorough that betrayal becomes unthinkable for a generation. The violence isn't cruelty for its own sake. It's communication. It's the language everyone in this world understands. The only language that translates across borders and cultures and competing interests. You wish it were otherwise. You didn't start this journey wanting to kill, but you learned early that men who won't kill get killed, that mercy is a luxury for people who don't face daily threats, that the mathematics of power are written in blood whether you like it or not. You've ordered the deaths of hundreds of people, maybe thousands. You stopped counting years ago, stopped keeping track of names and faces. Some deserved it by any standard. Some were simply in the way. Some were innocent, collateral damage in operations that couldn't distinguish between targets and bystanders. You tell yourself it's war, that wars have casualties, that the alternative, weakness, would have cost even more lives. The math is brutal but defensible. The math lets you sleep at night. Your wife lives in a compound in Culiacan, protected by 30 armed guards who rotate shifts around the clock. The walls are 12 feet high, topped with cameras and sensors. The grounds include a medical clinic, a chapel, everything she might need so she never has to leave. She's isolated from the world by barriers you built to keep her safe. Safe from kidnapping, from assassination, from the 1,000 threats that come with being married to you. You married her when you were both young, before the money and the power and the price that came with both. She was the daughter of a farmer in the next valley, pretty and smart and unimpressed by the money you were starting to make. She saw something in you that wasn't the business, something human underneath the ambition. She's been faithful for 30 years, raised your children through your absences and your dangers, and the constant fear that today would be the day the soldiers came. She buried your son beside you, held your hand as you wept for the only time anyone has ever seen, then went back to being the composed wife of a man who couldn't afford to show weakness. She knows what you do. She's never asked you to stop. She understood from the beginning that stopping isn't something men like you get to do. The business doesn't allow retirement. The business consumes everything, and the only way out is death or capture. She chose you anyway. She chose this life anyway. Sometimes you wonder if she regrets it. You've never asked. You're afraid of what she might say. Your children are scattered across continents, hidden behind false names and clean money. A daughter in Spain, living in Barcelona, married to a businessman who thinks her father died when she was young. She hasn't spoken to you in person for 6 years, only encrypted calls on holidays, her voice carrying the accent of a country she's made her home. A son in Mexico City, legitimate by every measure, running a construction company built with money you laundered years ago. He employs 800 people. He builds hospitals and schools. He's everything you might have been if you'd been born somewhere else to someone else. Another daughter in Los Angeles, American citizen through a birth you arranged at a hospital in San Diego. She's raising children who will never know their grandfather was the most wanted man in Mexico. They think you're dead too, a story she tells to protect them, to give them the normal childhood she never had. You've seen photographs. You've never held them. You never will. That's the price. That's what power costs. The Americans want you badly. They've tried 4 times to capture you. Operations that failed because you have people inside their agencies. People who warn you when the helicopters are coming. The Mexican government wants you too, though their desire is complicated by the money you've spread through every level of politics. Senators who vacation on your properties. Generals who drive cars you gave them. A former president whose campaign you funded when he was nothing but ambition and promises. The system isn't corrupt because of you. The system was corrupt before you were born. You just learned how to use it. Your rivals are constant pressure, a war that never pauses for breath. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, younger and hungrier, led by men who grew up admiring you and now want to destroy you. They're pushing into territory you've held for decades, testing your defenses, probing for weakness. They have military-grade weapons, armored vehicles, drones for surveillance. They've learned from your success, and now they're using those lessons against you. The remnants of other cartels you thought you'd destroyed keep reforming under new names and new leaders. The Zetas, the Beltran-Leyvas, the fragments of organizations you dismantled. They reform like cancer cells, adapting, evolving, finding new alliances. The chaos of competition never ends because the market never shrinks. Americans keep buying cocaine and heroin and fentanyl in quantities that would shame entire nations. As long as they're buying, someone will be selling. As long as someone's selling, there's a war to control the supply. You've been fighting that war for 27 years. You'll be fighting it until you can't anymore. The loneliness is the part no one talks about, the part the corridos and the documentaries and the legends all miss. The songs sing about your power, your wealth, your women, your fearlessness in the face of enemies. They don't sing about the concrete room where you eat rice and beans alone, surrounded by walls and guards and silence. They don't sing about the paranoia that makes you trust no one fully. Not even the men who've been with you for decades, who've killed for you and would die for you. They don't sing about the nights when you lie awake wondering which of your lieutenants is planning your replacement, which of your bodyguards has been bought by enemies, which morning will be the one when the helicopters finally come faster than your warning systems can alert you. You trust 3 people absolutely. Your wife, because 30 years of loyalty has to mean something. Your sister, who's managed your finances since the beginning. Who knows where every dollar is and has never taken more than you gave her. And yourself. That's the list. Everyone else is provisional. Their loyalty conditional on circumstances you can't fully control. The men who call you patron, who kiss your hand, who would die for you, any of them could be turned by enough money or enough fear. You know this because you've turned men just like them. The Americans arrested your son-in-law last year. He knew things, not everything, but enough to be dangerous. You had 3 options. Let him talk and face whatever damage followed, kill him before he could testify, or negotiate his silence with threats against his family. You chose the 3rd option because it was cleanest, because murder in an American prison brings heat you don't need. His wife, your daughter, knows what you did. She hasn't spoken to you since. Another relationship sacrificed to the mathematics of survival. You've tried to retire. 3 times over the past decade, you've attempted to step back, to hand control to lieutenants you trusted, to become the elder statesman who advises but doesn't command. Each time, the transition failed. Your absence created vacuum. The lieutenants fought among themselves. Rivals sensed weakness and attacked. You were pulled back in, forced to reassert control, reminded that the empire you built requires your hand on the wheel or it flies apart. The government offered you a deal once. Unofficial, through intermediaries, the kind of arrangement that happens in countries where power is negotiated rather than imposed. Retire fully. Give up operational control. Keep your money. Live out your days in peace. In exchange, you'd provide intelligence that would help them destroy your rivals, maintaining the appearance of a war on drugs while actually managing the market. You considered it seriously. Then you thought about what happens to men who trust governments, who believe in deals made in secret rooms. You declined. You're still alive. The men who made the offer are not. Your health is failing. Diabetes, heart problems, the accumulated damage of decades of stress and violence. Your doctor, a man who lives in your compound and hasn't left in 6 years, tells you to rest, to eat better, to stop carrying the weight of an empire. You laugh. Resting is for men who can afford to be still. You haven't been still since you were 15 years old. Being still means being caught. Being still means being killed. You think about legacy. The money will outlast you. Billions hidden in accounts and properties and investments across a dozen countries. Enough to fund your family for generations. The organization will outlast you, in some form, though it will be different without your hand guiding it. The name will outlast you, whispered in corridos and documentaries, and the stories people tell about the age of the cartels. But what does any of that mean? What does it matter that strangers will remember your name when your grandchildren will never know your face? Your mother died last year. You couldn't attend the funeral. Too dangerous. Too many eyes watching for exactly that opportunity. You watched from a distance, through binoculars, as they lowered her into the ground in the village where you were born. Your brothers are buried there too, and your son, and the father who taught you to farm poppies because corn couldn't feed a family. The village has electricity now, and running water, and a clinic you built, and a church you funded. The people there live better than they would have without you. That has to count for something. That has to justify something. But you also know the villages in Guerrero, where your product has destroyed generations. The American cities where the heroin you ship has created epidemics of addiction and death. The Mexican towns where your wars have left mass graves and orphans, and a fear so deep it's become part of the culture. The math doesn't actually work. The good doesn't outweigh the bad. You've just learned to stop doing the math, to focus on the immediate, to survive one day at a time without looking at the full ledger. You're 53 years old. The average lifespan of a cartel boss at your level is 42. You've beaten the odds by 11 years and counting. Every morning you wake up is a statistical anomaly, a middle finger to the probabilities that should have killed you a decade ago. You're not proud of this exactly. Pride requires believing you've done something praiseworthy. But you're satisfied in a grim way, the satisfaction of a man who's played a rigged game and somehow kept playing. The end will come. You've accepted this, not with peace, but with the resignation of someone who understands inevitabilities. It will be arrest or assassination, helicopter raid or betrayal, the American justice system or a rival's bullet. The manner doesn't matter. What matters is that you've prepared for it, that your family is protected, that the organization will continue generating wealth for people who depend on it. What matters is that you've done what men in your position do, survived as long as possible, accumulated as much as possible, controlled as much as possible. You eat your rice and beans in the concrete room. The woman who cooks for you asks if you want more. You say no. Outside, the mountains are quiet, the same mountains you crossed as a boy carrying packages for men who are all dead now. You've become the thing they were, and soon someone else will become what you are. And the cycle will continue because the cycle is older than any individual, stronger than any organization. You're the Sinaloa Cartel boss. You have everything. You have nothing. The difference between those statements is something only you understand, alone in a room in the mountains, waiting for an ending that refuses to arrive. This is what winning looks like. This is the prize. An empire, a fortune, a legend. And a concrete room, and rice and beans, and the certainty that it's all borrowed time. Every second of it. Borrowed from a future that's already been sold. That's a wrap. The story is fiction, but cartel leadership is real. Right now, in safe houses across Mexico, men who control billions are eating simple meals alone, surrounded by guards, isolated from families, waiting for helicopters or bullets. The power everyone wants looks different from the inside. It looks like a prison you built yourself. If this made you think, drop a comment. Subscribe for more.